Wouldn't it be nice to let someone else do all of the research and give you profitable tips each week? Following on from the recent Guru Buster video, I checked out the Tipster YouTube channels named in his video and was staggered to see the number of views and subscribers they had compared to channels who were trying to educate people as well as selling their own service. To top it off, the majority of the tips are terrible and offer no value. It is all random noise. What we are going to do today is something I said we'd never do. We're going to become a tipster for the day. I'm going to behave like a real online tipster. There will be lots of use of the word unlucky. I'll take absolutely zero accountability for the selections, and if we have a bad day, I'll use the phrase "we move on," which, as if by magic, makes all punters forget we had a shocker as they eagerly anticipate the next batch of random, poor-valued selections. Don't worry though, we haven't turned to the dark side. Our predictions will be done with CGMBet using both historical and future data to try and predict what will happen in this weekend's Premier League games. As a spoiler alert, using data from the beginning of December up until now, I've only got a 54% strike rate on the match market using games where the expected goals difference between the teams is greater than 0.4. Looking at over 2.5 goals, then we have a 67% strike rate. In normal tipster tradition, I won't mention the ROI on these bets. That would not be good for their script. It would show that they're actually losing their followers money. Before we get into any tips, let's look at the Premier League landscape for the current season. If you had backed the 51 home teams where the odds had value, you would have a 4.9% positive yield. Backing the away team where their odds were value would give you a yield of 27.53%. We'll also look at the over 2.5 goals market, although this only has a 1.45% yield on it, all before commission of course. For what it's worth, there's value backing the home team in the Villa-Nottingham Forest game, Bournemouth versus Arsenal, Everton-Brentford, Fulham-Liverpool and Leeds-Manchester United, and also value backing West Ham and Crystal Palace as the away teams. In the over 2.5 goals market, there's value in the games at Brighton, Fulham and Leeds. But remember, we are tipsters, we don't know about value. What we're going to do next is study how good our XG has been in helping predict the correct scores in games. For the current season, our XG has predicted the correct score in 52% of games from a Dutch of 6 games. This is okay, but could do a little bit more work. Looking at individual weeks, the weekend of December the 13th, we only hit 30% of the games, but there were some strange results here. We had Arsenal beating Wolves 2-1, which was predicted to happen 0.75% of the time. Fulham winning 3-2 at Burnley, which was 0.55%. Forest beating Spurs 3-0, which was 0.25%. And Man U and Bournemouth drawing 4-4, which was 0.79% predicted to happen. If we move forward a week, however, we can see we've hit 8 out of 10 correct scores in our 6 Dutch. And in fact, we've hit them all by the 5th score. So we could have got even better odds if we hadn't included this 6th score. But the only two that let us down were Leeds beating Palace 4-1. Which had a 0.21% probability of that happening, and Newcastle and Chelsea drawing 2-2, which was 5.95, which was probably the 7th score, so we just missed out on that one. As much as the 30% is really poor, and the 80% is pretty good actually, we're somewhere in between. But this is just showing the methodology that we're using the expected goals and getting these scores. So this sets the scene for how we will be picking our selections. As a reminder, where the XG difference is lower than 0.4, we won't be offering an opinion in the match market. For the over 2.5 goals, both teams' XG combined will need to be around 3 or over. If one team has an unnaturally high XG, then we will use our judgment on this. Our XG formula is not just the average scored by the home team and conceded by the away team, it is a lot more complex than that. Now we have our boundaries set, let's get into the fixtures. So first up is Villa versus Forest on Saturday morning, and as you recall from the advanced pros on screen, Villa were actually value for the home win here, and the expected goal difference is also 1.2, which points to a Villa victory. Out of the 6 top correct scores, then 4 of those also favour a Villa win. So that's our first prediction, Aston Villa to beat Nottingham Forest. And the game doesn't meet our criteria for the over 2.5 goals market. Only 2 of the 6 most popular scores would win on this market, so we've got no bets on the 2.5 goals market. Bournemouth versus Arsenal is another game where there was value in the home win, but with the expected goals almost identical, we won't be touching this game. And it also doesn't meet the over 2.5 goals criteria, so we won't be touching that one at all. Brighton versus Burnley. This is a game where the home team have an unnaturally high XG, but as we can see, Brighton consistently score twos with a couple of threes in there, and Burnley away consistently concede twos, threes, and even a 5 in there. Hence the reason for the high XG for Brighton. We're not expecting to score threes every game, but with the gap in the XG, then we would certainly be tipping a Brighton home win here. Also, all of the correct scores, every single one of them actually does favour a Brighton win by some score. And also the over 2.5 goals here, 5 of the 6 correct scores do favour that. One thing to watch out for though is that these 6 scores only cover 32.8% chance, so there's a lot of other scores which would have a similar percentage here which just don't quite make it into the top 6, so that is an extremely low percentage. So the software is basically telling us that the confidence in these is not great. But as we're tipster and we've got no accountability, then we will say yes, put your money on Brighton to beat Burnley. Wolves versus West Ham is a big game, and with both teams in the bottom 3 of the league. And also we had West Ham as value for an away win, if you remember from earlier. And looking at the XG, then that also favours an away win. And we've got 5 of the 6 correct scores here. Almost 50% of the book for these 6, favouring an away win. And it also qualifies for the over 2.5 goals, although only 3 of the scores here would actually win on that market, so it's not as certain as it might look. But again, we'll be backing the over 2.5 on the Wolves versus West Ham game. Everton v Brentford on paper is a game that I would have down as being a bit of a bore. Saying that, Everton's XG is 0.6 above Brentford, so that qualifies them for being tipped for a home win. And we get 3 of the 6 most popular predicted scores in Everton's favour. And as expected, this game doesn't qualify for the over 2.5 goals. Again, one of the scores would win on that market, but goals aren't favoured in this game. Fulham versus Liverpool looks very interesting. Remember, the advanced Poisson also had Fulham as being value here, and they've got 0.47 advantage in the XG over Liverpool. So that just qualifies for a home win tip. And on the correct scores, then we've got 3 of the top 6 scores favouring Fulham. So this is the tipsters' hero call here. If they get this one right, then they can dine out on it for weeks, posting screenshots where they tip Fulham to beat Liverpool. We know that the value is there for Fulham to win this game, although the tipster won't know this. It's a good selection for the over 2.5 goals, with 4 of the 6 games agreeing with that thought. Leeds versus Manchester United just qualifies for a tip on Leeds to win, with the XG difference of 0.42. Again, only 3 of the predicted top scores agree with that, and we're still looking at 34% of the market here. So we're nowhere near confident really that this will happen, but we're going with what the data's saying here, and we're just tipping with little thought, as a tipster would tend to do. The over 2.5 goals, this comfortably meets that criteria as well, with 5 of the 6 games being a winner in that category. Man City versus Chelsea, so we've got over 1 XG difference between the sides. Man City is actually twice as high as Chelsea's, and that shows in the scores, with Man City winning on 5 of the scores, drawing on the other one. And the over 2.5 goals, we've got 3 of the games here. Newcastle versus Crystal Palace, there's not a big enough gap, and it doesn't quite qualify for the over 2.5 goals, so we won't be touching that game at all. Tottenham versus Sunderland, with a 0.52 difference, we'll be backing Spurs, albeit with little confidence. 3 of the most popular scores agree with that. In fact, we've got 80% of the market covered in these top 6 scores. And we certainly won't be backing the over 2.5 goals on this game, with the combined XG only 1.5, and the dreaded 0-0 score is highly favoured. Both teams had a 0-0 the last time out, and only 1 of the 6 top scores predicting over 2.5 goals, so we won't be entering into the market here. So to recap, Honest Craig Tipping Services suggests the following bets: back Villa, Brighton, West Ham, Everton, Fulham, Leeds, Man City and Spurs, and back over 2.5 goals in the Brighton, Wolves, Fulham, Leeds and Man City games. So there you have it, tipping with data. How will we compare with the real tipsters? All we've used here is XG. Of course, we have a whole load more data at our disposal with CGMBet, and you should absolutely use it. This video does have its educational use though. We have looked how we can use the advanced Poisson and correct score modules in CGMBet. These are more valuable than you may at first think. Remember, if these tips don't do well, it was unlucky and we move on. If they are successful, please join my VIP group for £20 a month. I joke. That is where the tipsters make their money. For me, it will be going back to the boring videos which show you how you can use your own intuition rather than relying on someone on the internet who has no interest in whether you make money or not. That is the bottom line. By becoming self-sufficient, there is less dependency on these opportunists who would rather take your money than learn how to bet and trade successfully themselves. If you found this video useful, please give us a like and subscribe. It really does help us increase our coverage. Maybe we'll even start reaching the people that need to hear this message. Thank you for watching.